What is inertia?
Laziness.
The object's gonna keep doing what it's doing?
Yeah. So I have three objects that, what would keep something from keep doing what it's doing?
Like an interference,
Looking for more physics terminology,
friction.
that would be an example.
Opposing force.
Not necessarily opposing, but
Another force.
what?
Another force.
Yeah, just in general, a force. Opposing force, if it's gonna slow down, if the force is in the same direction, it'll speed up. If it's perpendicular, it'll cause it to change direction. So if I have four objects that are cruising along the ice, and we can ignore effects of friction from air and from the ice, what force is causing them to stop? Or somebody say nothing, but there are a number of people who seem to feel that it required force to keep them moving, which means that if you didn't do that, they would stop. But there's nothing to stop them. So it's one of those questions that there's always that great hope until you actually start seeing them, and then I'm going, oh, okay, there's a lack of understanding about inertia. But inertia is the tendency of an object to keep doing whatever it's doing. I assume Inertia Girl was one of the stories I told in at least one of the videos. Okay. All right. There's also, Jasmira had a question before. Do you feel like you know how to approach this now, or do you still have the question?
Yeah, I figured it out.
Okay. Pardon?
What was that?
That's question 5 from Master 72. Are there other questions before we do a test level force diagram problem? And then get on to chapter 3 stuff.
Can we ask questions about chapter 3?
Sure.
I have a lot.
Then let me do this one first, and
That's fine.
then if I just keep cruising and I forget to ask, just interrupt and say, hey, you said we're doing questions.
Okay.
Okay. If you have not watched the force diagram videos, please do. There's 3 of them there. Basically, it's what I do in class. It's the step-by-step I do. If F-Town means absolutely nothing to you, or there's not a glimmer of recognition, then you really need to watch those videos. I will guarantee it won't be this problem, but this is the level of problem that you will see on the first test. Now, one of the reasons why I give you the diagram here is so you know what is connected with what object. So when I originally started writing this up here, I had the chair separate, and then I realized that the problem that I'm copying from, this is from the spring 2017 test? Yeah, spring 2017 test number 1. I had the chair as part of the vehicle. So you're not doing separate forces between the chair and the vehicle, that these are considered one object. If I did not give the force diagram, then you could also get into the question of, well, is the upper part of the box connected to the lower part of the box, or do I treat them separately? And so this is to eliminate that confusion. Although some students will still, they like to think that the chair is separate, so they would still do forces between the chair and the Jeep, or whatever I called it, the vehicle. And I don't take off of that, just it's unnecessary and gets cluttered. All right, so the scenario is, if I can find it. Greg is hauling his belongings to his new apartment in the back of an open-air flatbed truck. That's my rendition. His brother Edro decided to do something stupid and is trying to stay balanced on top of the box. He's actually doing a really good job and manages not to slide or to fall during the entire trip. But part of this is aided by his holding onto an ideal rope. attached to the Jeep. Otherwise, his feet would be swept out from under him, misprint, and he would bang the back of his head on the road. So he's just barely hanging on. His feet want to slip out from underneath him, so he would rotate back. Or as we'll learn in chapter 8, he'll rotate towards the back of the room. If that's confusing, just wait till chapter 8. The problem begins when the light changes to green, prompting Greg to slam his foot onto the gas pedal, accelerating another mistake, Edro in the box and everything else in the truck to the right. So they are going to accelerate to the right. The acceleration is not part of the force diagram, it's just here as a note. Unfortunately, Greg is ignoring the seatbelt laws, but fortunately does not slide on the seat. It is summer, the seats are vinyl, air conditioning does not exist, and he's wearing short pants. If any of you have never experienced this, congratulations. The truck is steered by a stick as seen in the drawing. He pulls back towards himself on the stick in order to apply brakes. So he's going to be pulling that way in order to apply brakes. Conversely, one mistake I said, he slams his foot on the gas pedal. He's going to accelerate himself using the stick, so he's going to be pushing forward on the stick in order to accelerate forward. We have our checklist right here, and I find that weight is the simplest one. It also shows up sometimes, not others. Let's make it a 4-wheel drive. I don't think I said it was 4-wheel. Because that does affect how friction acts on the wheels. And let's go for it. Weight. What object has weight? If you put weight on everything, I'm not necessarily taking off for it, it's just more than you absolutely have to. All right, so which way is weight acting on the Gerard?
Downwards.
On Greg.
Downwards.
So put W sub G, and they come in pairs, so there's gonna be another force somewhere.
A normal force going up.
Normal force is not the other part of that force pair.
On the ground. Is it on the ground going up?
Yep, on the ground going up.
So what's that force called? A weight force?
Yeah, it's a gravitational force. And it is equal in magnitude to the weight of Greg. All right, and then Edro has weight acting which way?
Down.
And the other part of that pair?
Up on the ground.
All right, and I guess somebody said everything box.
Weight down. And up on the ground.
And truck.
Can you slow down just a little bit? Sorry.
Pardon?
Will you just slow down
Oh.
for a minute? Sorry.
Yep. I'm gonna draw this pair
That's
again.
fine. That's fine.
So that weight is acting down on the truck, and the truck's pulling up on the planet. Notice that the subscripts are the same for the pairs because they are equal in magnitude. You can also indicate, if I gave you more information, you could also indicate the two vectors having the same magnitude by drawing the lines the same, but I didn't give you enough information. You have no idea if this box weighs more than Edro or less than Edro. It's a box, so we use W for weight and then subscript here to indicate it's for the box. Now, some students do not like subscripts at all and will leave them completely off, and well, yes, you'll take a penalty for that, because not all the weights are the same. Some students will not put a subscript that has any direct physical connection to the problem, and that's not inherently wrong. Some they'll just, the first one is W1, and then W2, W3, W4, or in what order they happen to write them down. I personally like a subscript that has some meaning to the actual problem, to physically what's going on.
So we can put like B for box?
Yep.
It doesn't have to be numbered?
It is not. All right, what about the rope?
Tension.
No, I was thinking, so somebody said weight, everything has weight.
No.
Why, what's the clue in the problem that says that we don't have to put weight on that? Right. So the ideal rope, massless, and what are the other two criteria?
It's
And
stretchless.
I heard weightless. That goes along with massless. Stretchless is the third one. Thank you. All right. If you put weight on the rope, if you actually had an arrow pointing down on the rope and then up on the ground, I would circle it and just, on a test or quiz or assignment, I would circle it and just write, this is the letters IGN for ignore. I'm not counting off for it, I'm not giving credit for it, it's just, I'm ignoring it. There's some things I write so often, it becomes less and less legible. Given, which I might have talked about already. And, oh, another common abbreviation, more legible, benefit of doubt. All right, so anything else with weight? All right, done. All right, so, Hope.
Yeah. Tension, opposing forces, so an arrow this way, arrow this way.
Acting on where?
On the top of the rope and the bottom of the rope.
So which way is it acting up here?
Down.
That way?
Well, yeah, like towards the rope. Oh no, I'm sorry, other way around. It's up towards him because he's pulling it, and then down. Yeah,
And then down,
on the other side.
down here.
Yeah.
Where's the other force in this pair? Forces come in pairs, where's the other one?
Whatever his name is, he's got a weird name.
Edro.
Yeah, Hedra.
Yeah, it's on Edro. These happen to be in the opposite direction, and they are of equal magnitude because it's an ideal rope. But these are not what we're talking about when we talk about a pair of forces. This is the pair of forces here. So I have some tension here, some tension here. Where's the other part of this pair?
On the truck.
Yeah, where did I draw it? Connected to here. Because it's an ideal rope, I don't need subscripts for a single rope. I would only need subscripts if I had a second rope somewhere, second ideal rope. But if I did do subscripts for it, these would have the same subscript. These would have the same subscript. Now, there are a number of students who will recognize that, yes, they have the opposing forces right here. The rookie mistake that I will sometimes see is they will take this tension right here from here and point it towards the end of the rope. The tension has to be parallel to the rope. So, that's why I drew it. Those are anti-parallel to each other. All right, so there's only one rope, so only one set of two pairs of tension at each end, one at each end. Tension done.
There's no other.
Okay,
Natural force, or normal force?
all right. Where's normal force acting on what?
From the ground acting upward on the car, and from the car acting downward on the ground.
All right,
From the car acting upward on the box, and from the box acting downward on the car. From the,
wait a second, wrong subscript. Now, I labeled this YD and YB. This is between the box and the truck. If you want to do it T for truck because it's between the truck, and then this one perhaps potentially G for ground, that's fine too. I generally take the top one and that's the subscript. That's just the way I do it. Another thing is that, yeah, both sets of tires are touching the ground. you only need to do the normal force once between the ground and the truck. You don't have to do one for the front tire and one for the back tire. Or, if I did it the correct order, for the front tire and the back tire. Because if you're gonna start doing that, then it probably has four wheels, so are you gonna do one for 4 tires? And the tire touches in more than one spot, so are you gonna do it for each spot where the tire touches the ground? So one is sufficient. If you did it for both of them, I circle them both, and so if you had one over there, I would circle them like that. In ink, so if I make a mistake, it just gets messy. I circle them one and I count it as one thing.
Wouldn't your natural forces oppose each other?
They do. Normal, not natural. I missed who actually asked that.
It was me.
Okay. Do you feel like I just answered your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I was looking at the wrong lines.
Okay. All right, what else has a normal force?
Between the brother and the box is giving normal force up to the, brother, and the brother is giving normal force down to the box.
I think what you're saying, if you drew it, you would draw it absolutely correctly. Gotta be careful about the word to in that case. On, I think, is a much better preposition, because that tells you where to draw it. It's acting down on the box, so I'm gonna draw it downwards on the box. So why is it E? Why is it E?
And then between the driver, I forget, what was his name?
Greg and Edro.
Okay, Greg, there's normal force from the car acting upward on Greg, and from Greg, there's normal force acting downward on the car, or on the
Okay.
chair specifically.
Now, I'm drawing it here because this is physically where he is. If you drew this downward arrow over here, considering this is all one object, that's fine. But I tend to like to draw it at least roughly where the force is applied. So Y sub G. And his back is not on the back of the chair, so I don't have to worry about a normal force there. I deliberately drew him offset. And there's at least one more normal force. One more pair of normal forces, I should say. So we got that. All right. And by the way, this pair of normal forces, there are 2 pairs that were most commonly forgotten in this problem when I first did it. So we can come back to that. Pardon?
Is it the rope?
Oh, no, tension is fine. We don't know how the rope is attached to his hand or attached to the vehicle, so we can't really narrow it down any more than we have, and so we just lump it into tension.
Is it the brother's other foot?
In the original drawing, he had both feet on it. No, I'm treating the feet as one.
Okay.
Is it the steering wheel or
The rod.
yes, yeah,
You know, every vehicle's got a driving rod.
yeah.
Which way is he, since he's accelerating that way, he has to pull back in order to brake, in order to apply the gas. He doesn't slam his foot on the pedal, as I said in the first sentence. Which way is the normal force acting on the stick?
Outward.
I'm trying to figure out which way your finger is pointing, because you might be right, or you might be a little bit off. I know this doesn't look like the driving rod you have in your vehicle, but we'll pretend. So he's pushing forward. Which way is the normal force acting on the rod?
If he's pushing it forward, then normal should be the opposite direction, correct?
No. No. Normal force is a pushing force.
It's like horizontal down,
Horizontal down.
like this way.
So he's
Going
pulling-
that way?
Yeah,
What does normal mean? Perpendicular, so if it's going that way, that's perpendicular to what? See, a little danced around it, a couple wrong ways, but
The car?
that's perpendicular to the car.
Just use this direction forward,
Then that's perpendicular to
or I
what?
guess up,
Yes,
yeah.
which is why when you first pointed, Brianna, I wasn't sure if you were trying to point that way or you were actually pointing
I
upwards.
was going this way.
Oh,
I was wrong.
It's perpendicular to the rod, so there is a normal force there that is in this direction. Y sub R. And the other one is acting on him. Those are supposed to be opposite directions. All right, those are the normal forces, yep. And now friction. One of the clues about friction is that friction requires normal force. I can have a normal force without friction. If you've seen the videos, box on ground, there was normal force but no friction. But friction requires a normal force. So anywhere there's friction, there's gotta be a normal force there. And so I have a number of normal forces already laid out, and so those are the places I'm gonna look to see if there's any friction. And what I go through in my head when I'm trying to figure it out is I go, if it's frictionless, what's gonna happen?
It wouldn't stop if it was friction.
Well, it depends on what it is. All right, so let's start out with box and vehicle. If the box were frictionless, if it were frictionless in this surface right here,
Slip and
It's
go
like-
straight
It
down.
would
Yeah,
go
it would
straight
slide
back.
out.
so which way is friction acting on the box?
The opposite. This way, cause I'd slide that way.
So therefore, the friction's acting, which
To the
way?
right.
You're pointing both ways, Brianna.
To the left.
To the right.
Okay. Now,
It took me a minute.
speaking of this, I worked in Wilmington, Delaware for a number of years, and there's this place downtown where there are two one-way signs pointing in opposite directions on the same street. At some point, I thought I imagined it, because I tried to go back and find it, and I couldn't find it, but fortunately, someone else had seen it also.